Studios in Lexington. This is Kentucky Newsmakers with Bill Bryant.
Good morning from WKYT News. Hope you're having a nice weekend. We welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers on this Independence Day weekend in America. Our guest is one of the most powerful figures in Washington and Kentucky's longest-serving U.S. Senator ever, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. The issues are swirling in our nation's capital and here at home, where McConnell has spent the week talking with people from across the Commonwealth who have elected him and re-elected him since 1984. Same-sex marriage was made the law of the land by the U.S. Supreme Court. The High Court also ruled on the EPA's new rules about emissions. Justices upheld the Affordable Care Act once again. A massacre at a church in the South has led to calls for prominent Confederate flags to come down and a statue of Jefferson Davis be removed from the Kentucky Capitol. The U.S. and Cuba opening embassies in each other's countries. Republicans and President Obama worked together on fast-track authority for trade treaties. And the presidential race and the Kentucky governor's race roll on as well. Senator McConnell with us today on Kentucky Newsmakers. Those are some of the things we'll discuss. Good to have you. Thanks for coming.
You covered it all.
That's an agenda, isn't it? We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
We've mentioned, of course, this is Independence Day weekend. America watching carefully for the possibility of any kind of a threat to our homeland. Are we being diligent enough in keeping our country safe?
Well, it's good to talk about it because particularly in these acts of domestic terrorism, seeing and recognizing something suspicious is really the best defense. But it does underscore what a dangerous world it is. And I think the administration has consistently kind of underestimated the challenges abroad. You remember the president said just a little over a year ago that ISIL was the JV team. They now control large swaths of Syria and Iraq. This is a very dangerous period, not only here at home, but around the world.
As you mentioned, being observant, is it important that everyday Americans be watchful, report what they see?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't want people to be afraid to go out. I think that's an exaggeration, but we need to be alert.
Do you worry about domestic terrorism or lone wolves or small groups that are inspired by things they see elsewhere?
Yeah, I do. And the bad guys are very good at social media, very good at recruiting these lone wolves. And they don't necessarily want them to come to the Middle East. They want them to do something bad here. It's a heck of a challenge.
There are lots of domestic issues out there right now. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled on same-sex marriage last week. We've had many local clerks in Kentucky say that they will not issue any marriage licenses because they object to that on religious grounds. Do you believe the debate was ended by the Supreme Court's ruling on that issue?
Well, I think they ended the issue of whether or not it's legal for same-sex couples to get married, because the Supreme Court is the last word. What it did, though, is open up a whole new area of potential legislation and litigation when religious convictions intersect with that act of getting married. And I think you're seeing that on part of the number of clerks in Kentucky who have religious objections to it. So I think we'll have a protracted period here of potential legislative and litigative responses to the ruling.
I think you were quoted this week as saying that Republicans don't have many legislative options in the case of
well, there may
marriage.
be. We're taking a look at it. But I think probably the courts are going to deal with this issue of the intersection of religious freedom and same-sex marriage.
And apparently you do not think that a national constitutional amendment is an option for
Well, it just
opponents?
wouldn't pass.
Yeah.
It just, you know, there just aren't the votes to do that. Virtually every Democrat in the Senate, maybe there's one exception, is in favor of same-sex marriage. So we couldn't get the votes to do it.
The court has been busy on other major rulings. Once again, the court sided with President Obama on the federal health exchange, essentially another green light for Obamacare. You spoke of repealing it root and branch during your re-election campaign last year and in the months leading up to that. Is that still your goal?
I think it's still what we need to do. Just because the Supreme Court didn't strike it down doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. Everything that I and others predicted has happened. You know, higher premiums, higher co-payments, higher deductibles. I also predicted there would be a series of mergers and acquisitions, hospitals merging, we could end up losing one of Kentucky's major homegrown companies, Humana, according to news reports, being gobbled up by an even bigger health insurance company. They're all trying to get bigger in order to deal with big government. And the figures the administration cites with regard to those who are newly insured, most of them are Medicaid, the program for low-income people. But if you look at the private health insurance market, they've wreaked havoc with the private health insurance market, basically taken it over and turned the health insurance market into kind of a regulated utility type situation. A very, very bad move in the wrong direction. I think it will still be a big issue in the 2016 race and likely to be a big debate once again.
You made a glancing reference to the Humana and the possible acquisition or sale going on there, and as we know, it's I think 12,500 jobs in Louisville alone, and others throughout the state. Is there anything that you know, leadership or antitrust or any kind of regulation might be used to block that? You have the former mayor of Louisville down the hall from the president, and you as the majority leader.
Well, I don't think it's a legislative issue, but it could be antitrust implications. But the administration is reaping what it sowed. This is happening as a result of what they were very much in favor of, which is Obamacare. This has been the result of it. And so they may try through the Justice Department to prevent these acquisitions or mergers, but entirely predictable.
Does it become more difficult, though, for Republicans to continue to push repeal when more Americans are signing up for coverage, and for some, within a couple of years, this is seen as an entitlement?
I don't think so. I mean, it might be difficult to take away the subsidies, but if you had the subsidies available to people to use on a more open and private market where they had more options, you know, that's a way to go. I think we have to await a new president. If we have one of a different party, we're going to want to look at that in a very serious way. To try to undo the damage that's been done.
So if you were to, as you say, not totally repeal, but to change or to make adjustments to health care going forward, primarily what would those be?
Well, I think what you want in the end, Bill, is a private market with more competition, not less. The reason premiums are spiking is because there is less competition, not more. And the reason these policies, many of them are so bad, is because the government is dictating to the health insurance companies what they can sell. The government is telling them what they can sell, as opposed to companies in a truly private market competing with each other, custom crafting insurance that actually meets the needs of people. So you've got, you know, more and more people, in effect, being forced to buy things that they don't want.
But you're not for returning to the days of pre-existing conditions, keeping a lot of people from getting
But everybody
insurance?
was in favor of dealing with that already. And, you know, many states had already developed high-risk pools to deal with those who were had the most difficulty getting insurance. This should not have been federalized.
The court also ruled against the Environmental Protection Agency, saying that it did not take costs into enough consideration when it passed some new rules. That has implications in Kentucky. Do you consider that court ruling a victory for Kentucky?
Victory, yes, but kind of late, because the way it works in the bureaucracy, they signal the direction in which they're headed. Everybody begins to change behavior. And by the time you may get some kind of reversal in court, the course has already been taken. For example, the utility up in Lawrence County switching from coal to natural gas. Now, at this point, they're probably not going to go back in the other direction. So, yeah, helpful, but probably too late to undo all the damage that's been done by the regulatory environment that they've been, you know, promoting for the last 5 years.
Is it the regulatory environment as much as market forces that are affecting, for instance, Kentucky coal?
No, it's mostly regulatory. I mean, coal has a future. The question is whether coal has a future in the United States. You know, in many countries, they're increasing the use of coal. But here, on all fronts, this particular ruling had to do with mercury and other pollutants. The second front is CO2 emissions. In that case, we may actually have a chance of winning. So, because, for example, the coal industry is being represented, believe it or not, by the president's constitutional law professor at Harvard, who actually agrees with the president that climate change is a big problem, but doesn't think he has the right to do what he's doing, either under the Constitution or the Clean Air Act of 1990. So there's a chance that might succeed, but the courts are always a slow process, and in the meantime, the regulators are working away, achieving their goals. And at some point, the court weighs in, and behavior has already been adjusted. So, look, the regulatory environment in this administration, whether it's healthcare, financial services, Environmental Protection Agency, NLRB, FCC, you name the agency, their attitude is if you're making a profit, you must be up to no good. So they're here to help you.
The awful attack that left 9 people dead at a historic black church in South Carolina has sparked calls for a change around the South in many ways. Many have pushed for the removal of the Confederate flag from prominent places. And in Kentucky, there's been this call to remove the statue of Kentucky-born President of the Confederacy from the state capitol. You have supported both of those moves. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, but let me say, I'm a descendant of a Confederate veteran. So I don't think we ought to airbrush history or pretend the Civil War didn't happen. My view on the Davis statue was just a question of proportionality. You know, was he in the same league with Abraham Lincoln and Henry Clay and Alvin Barkley, who are also there? There's an appropriate place to recognize our history and to recognize Davis. My view is a better place would be the Kentucky History Museum, or we have a park down in Todd County, the county in which Davis was born, and you know, might be appropriate to have the statue there. So it's just a question of appropriateness of the recognition, but I don't think we ought to go through the U.S. Capitol, for example, and take out every Confederate who may be there. There are a number of them, nor do I think we ought to pretend the Civil War didn't happen.
U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican majority leader in the U.S. Senate, our guest here on Kentucky Newsmakers. A lot more questions to go. We'll talk about some national and international issues and some politics on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. We're really glad you're with us today. Hope you've been enjoying your Independence Day weekend. And we are visiting with U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, who has served Kentucky since late 1984. Was there on your election night over in Louisville. Remember that that well. On a weekend like this, the 4th of July, your thoughts about America's place in the world today?
Internationally, not as well respected as we used to be. I think all of that's correctable, but I'm not happy about that. But look, in terms of this big, wonderful country that we're fortunate enough to be a part of, even though I don't have an election this year and not for several years to come, I'm going to go participate in the 4th of July parade in Campbellsville, Kentucky, proudly, and celebrate our heritage.
Last week, America and Cuba assumed a different relationship, opening embassies in each other's country. Do you think that's a positive move? I know it is controversial.
No, I don't. Based upon, I'm having a hard time figuring out what we're getting in return. Now, if there were a serious modification of Cuban behavior, a turning over of some of the criminals, some from this country that have been down there freely operating for a number of years. In other words, if there's some reciprocity here, you know, maybe it'd be worth taking a look at. But I'm having a hard time figuring out how we're getting anything out of this. And this is a thuggish regime that doesn't seem to me ought to be rewarded with normal behavior unless they begin to change their behavior. And I haven't seen much evidence of it.
Do you
yet.
think there's a chance of that with, you know, with Americans going there to visit?
Well, that's the president's argument, that simply having more free-flowing interaction between us will lead to a change in behavior. We'll see.
You supported the president on this fast-track authority for trade agreements. His own Democratic Party went against him. Republicans pushed it along. What effect will those agreements have when the president could make a deal that Congress could only vote up or down but could not change?
We've had trade promotion authority off and on since Franklin Roosevelt, and the reason for it is you couldn't approve a trade agreement if it were amendable. You know, I'd be trying to cut a deal for coal and bourbon, for example. Other people would try to be some special carve out for whatever their state was involved in. So it is a grant of authority to the president, but it's not just for this president. It's a 6-year trade promotion authority, which means not only will it be available to Barack Obama, it'll be available to the next president, who many of us hope will be of a different party. Trade is such a toxic issue with Democrats these days that if you put a Republican in the White House, I don't think you could get trade promotion authority. I don't think there'd be a single Democrat who would vote for it. And even this time, with the president, the most prominent Democrat in the country, advocating it, only 28 Democrats in the House and 14 in the Senate voted for it. So it was a tough uphill climb even for him to get the Democrats that he needed. I had an overwhelming majority on our side. Republicans believe that trade is a winner for America. Bill, if you look at the trade agreements that we currently have around the world, add them all up together, we have a $60 billion trade surplus with countries we have trade agreements. In other words, we sell $60 billion more than we buy from them. America is a great trading nation. In addition to that, these Pacific countries that'll be in this deal, if it comes together, want to get closer to us. They're worried about Chinese commercial domination and Chinese military domination. The Japanese, the Malaysians, and the Vietnamese want to get closer to us. So it has a foreign policy and defense dimension as well.
The Bluegrass Army Depot, located in central Kentucky, a major employer here. There's work underway to neutralize the chemical weapons that have been there for decades. Do you see a role for that depot, which is, again, a major employer in this area, after the nerve agent is gone?
I hope so. I mean, the community's been very, very active in studying how they can transition, once the dangerous weapons are gone, into the next stage. And I'm hoping that that will be the case. My job, as it has been for 30 years, is to keep an eye on it and help the funding. This is a long project. It takes a long time to get it done. Keep the funding flowing, and we're on schedule to get rid of those dangerous weapons, and hopefully it'll have a future.
What is your take on getting this done? A major project that Kentucky and the state of Ohio are going to have to face up to at some point, and that is doing something with the Brent Spence Bridge, which carries I-75, I-71 over the Ohio River.
Big, big problem. And as you know, the stalemate has been the controversy over tolls. Over in Louisville, they're building 2 bridges. Down near Henderson, there's another bridge being built. In those communities, the issue of levying tolls to help pay for it has not been all that controversial until those projects are going forward. That has certainly not been the case in northern Kentucky. The way it works with the federal gas tax is the federal government collects it, sends it down to the states on a formula basis, and they decide how to spend it. It is not possible to earmark enough funds at the federal level to get this project going. This is going to, in the end, have to be decided here in Kentucky.
But would the states of Kentucky and Ohio have to forego a lot of other things in order for that to happen?
Well, they'd have to decide how to fund it. I mean, we're already sending down on a formula basis to Ohio and to Kentucky federal gas tax revenues. We're going to try to pass another highway bill here. I'm always looking for an opportunity to be helpful. But even back in the days when there were earmarks, the kind of money you're talking about up here is far beyond any earmark that was ever done. So it's a tough problem, really tough problem.
Is there any kind of project short of replacement, which is huge? You know, I think billions of dollars. Is there another way to shore up that bridge in the meantime while this is a standoff?
Well, that's done by the 2 state governments. Governor Beshear and Governor Kasich will have to try to figure out how to implement the project.
All right, U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, our guest. We'll talk about some upcoming political races here and there on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers as we have our final minutes with the Majority Leader of the U.S. Senate. Welcome back in, WKYT with Kentucky Newsmakers, and we're visiting with U.S. Senator Mitch McConnell, the longest-serving senator in Kentucky history and also the Majority Leader in Washington, a job that I understand you're enjoying more these days after the re-election and after now clearly a strong Republican majority that you're leading there.
Well, it's a new Senate with a new leader, and I said last year during the campaign I had enjoyed being the defensive coordinator, but harder to score on defense. The offensive coordinator gets to call the plays. And so I get to set the agenda for the nation in the Senate, and we're dealing with the dysfunction. You know, Senate didn't pass a budget in 4 of the last 5 years, even though the law required it. We've done that. The Senate only had 15 roll call votes on amendments in all of 2014. In the entire year, we've had over 130 so far, half a year, most of them by Democrats. We're up and functioning again, and we're passing things that we can agree on that make a difference for the country.
So we said we're just a few months removed from your own re-election last year, but we're never far from another election in Kentucky. And the Republicans nominated Matt Bevin, who challenged you in last year's Republican Senate primary. How supportive are you now of his candidacy for governor?
Yeah, completely. Look, we're never going to change the state until we change the governor and change the state House of Representatives. And I think there's a dramatic difference between the way the Democrats have run this state. We're not right to work. We have the wrong kind of prevailing wage. We don't allow public charter schools. We're just not competitive with neighbors like Tennessee and Indiana. And it's time to move forward and have a new approach with a new agenda. And I think a new Republican governor would make a huge difference.
Do you anticipate actively campaigning for Bevin?
Sure.
Do you expect to be a strategist in his campaign?
Well, we've talked, yeah. I think he's got a really good chance of winning.
That was a divisive primary the Republicans had there back in May.
But we're having lots of primaries now. We had a big divisive primary this year. You know why? Because the nomination's worth having. When I started my career and you started here, we didn't have primaries. We had to beg people to run for office. All the primaries were on the Democratic side. Kentucky is much more open to Republican leadership now than it was when you and I started our careers back there. And so you see that reflected. My opponent last year didn't have a primary. I did. Jack Conway didn't have much of a primary. We had a big one on our side. I think it's a reflection of the growing strength of Republicans and Republican thinking among Kentuckians, and that's why I think there's a good chance we'll elect a Republican governor this year.
Next year is interesting in Kentucky because the state's junior senator, Rand Paul, is running for president and for re-election to his Senate seat at the same time, which of course could have impact on your holding on to the majority in the Senate. How do you think that scenario all plays out?
Well, he's certainly running for the Senate, for sure. He's going to file for the Senate, and we'll see whether he also ends up being a nominee for president. It's a very, very competitive situation. I told somebody earlier today, it's like the Derby this year. We've got a big field, a good field, a lot of great horses on the track. Every one of them looking for some angle to go through to win, and we'll see what happens.
Do you support changing to a caucus for selecting the Republican delegates next year?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it gives him a chance to compete for the nomination because we have a restriction in Kentucky. You can't be on the ballot twice at one time for 2 different offices, and I think that solves the problem for the primary.
Are you in any kind of an awkward position because there are so many senators of your party running for president?
Well, it is important for them all to show up on the same day occasionally. If we have a particularly close vote and we're concerned about the outcome, we send out an alert to our 4 candidates for president saying we're really going to need you on this particular day. Rand's been very good about that. I think he's missed very few votes.
Some Republicans have pointed out that if he were to catch fire, if his presidential ambitions were to come through and he were to be on target to get the GOP nomination, that Republicans could be left without a Republican nominee next year, and it would be basically handed over to the Democratic nominee if there's no Republican primary next year.
Yeah, that's a potential dilemma.
And
there's no question about it.
Do you offer any advice in that regard to your party?
It would be a real dilemma if that happened.
So, something you have thought of, right?
Yeah, it's occurred to me.
You and Senator Paul had a public split over the NSA data collection program. Is he your choice for president?
Yeah, no, I support him for president. I think he's a very capable guy. We just differ on this. I mean, the fact is the NSA is not listening to your phone calls. The only phone calls they listen into is if they look at the data that the phone companies already have, your bills, which you have no right of privacy to your bills. The phone company has your bill. And if they find a pattern of calls, for example, to a known terrorist, then they have to go to what's called a FISA court, a bunch of federal judges, and get a warrant to listen in. So don't worry, the NSA is not listening to your phone calls. And I think there's been a lot of loose talk about that, and I'm not concerned about it. In fact, I didn't vote for the watered-down version that ultimately passed. In fact, Senator Paul and I ended up both voting against the watered-down version. He thought it went too far, and I thought it didn't go far enough. So it was one of those odd situations where we just had a difference of opinion on the issue.
Senator McConnell, thanks for coming. We appreciate it very much. I want to thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers. I'll see you bright and early on WKYT this morning. We start at 4:30, and we hope you make it a good week ahead.